Hello friends, you are watching 3A's Vision, an innovative distance learning channel. We have started a series of videos about international financial reporting standards and international accounting standards, followed one by one. It is most important and desired that if you are interested in improving your learnings in international financial reporting standards and international accounting standards, subscribe to our channel and click on bell icon to get our future updates. Dear friends, in preparation of IFRS 1 video, we tried our level best to cover the maximum matter of discussion, which will be helpful to understand the IFRS 1. Therefore, keeping in view length of this video, we have split up the video of this standard in different parts to control its time length. Therefore, to get complete knowledge, watch its all parts. Hello friends, in part 4th of IFRS 1 video, we will discuss about the remaining optional exemptions of third main element of IFRS 1, that is specific exceptions and exemptions, and the remaining fourth element of IFRS 1 will be discussed in last part of this video. The second optional exemption is share-based payment transactions. The standard addresses three types of share-based payment transactions: equity settled, cash settled, and with the cash alternatives. Equity settled transactions are measured at fair value at grant date only. Cash settled transactions are measured at fair value at the end of each reporting period until exercised. Cash alternative transactions are measured partly as equity settled and partly as cash settled transactions. The exemptions set out below reflect that principle. Equity settled transactions. IFRS 1 include two exemptions for equity settled transactions, that are: first-time adopters are not required to apply IFRS 2 for equity settled share-based payments granted on or before 7th November 2002, and first-time adopters are not required to apply IFRS 2 to share-based payments granted after 7th November 2002 that vested before the date of transition to IFRSs. Cash settled transactions. A first-time adopter is encouraged but not required to apply IFRS 2 to liabilities arising from share-based payment transactions that were settled before the letter of the date of transition to IFRSs and 1st January 2005. Modifications to existing share-based payment arrangements. If a first-time adopter modifies the terms or conditions of a grant of equity instruments to which IFRS 2 has not been applied, the requirements of IFRS 2 regarding the treatment of cash, such modifications need not be applied if the modification occurred before the date of transition to IFRSs. Disclosure requirements. Equity settled transactions. The first-time adopter is required to provide a description of each type of share-based payment arrangement, including settlement method and vesting conditions, the number and weighted average exercise prices of share option outstanding by way of a reconciliation of changes for the period, the weighted average share price at the date of exercise for share options exercised during the period, and for share options outstanding at the end of the period, the range of exercise prices and weighted average remaining contractual life. The third optional exemption is insurance contracts. IFRS 4 was issued in 2004 and is seen as an interim standard pending completion of the International Accounting Standard Board's project on insurance contracts. IFRS 4 allows entities to continue to use their existing accounting policies for liabilities arising from insurance contracts, as long as the existing policies meet certain minimum requirements as set out in IFRS 4. IFRS 4 also requires disclosure that identify and explain the amounts in an insurer's financial statements arising from insurance contracts. The International Accounting Standard Board recognized that it could be quite onerous for entities to apply the requirements of IFRS 4 retrospectively. Therefore, IFRS 1 provides an optional exemption whereby an entity issuing insurance contracts may elect upon first time adoption to apply the transitional provision of IFRS 4 insurance contracts. The fourth optional exemption is deemed cost. IFRS 1 includes an optional exemption that relieves first time adopters from the requirement to recreate cost information for property, plant and equipment, investment property, and intangible assets. When the exemption is applied, deemed cost is the basis for subsequent depreciation and impairment tests. Deemed cost, as defined by IFRS 1, as the amount used as a surrogate for cost and depreciated cost at a given date. Scope of exemption in deemed cost. The exemption may be applied to property, plant and equipment, investment property if an entity elects to use the cost model in IAS 40 investment property, and intangible assets that meet the recognition criteria in IAS 38 intangible assets and the criteria in IAS 38 for revaluation. A further exemption relating to oil and gas assets was introduced in July 2009. The exemption control cannot be applied to other classes of assets by analogy. The exemption is available regardless of the IFRS accounting policy selected by the entity for ongoing reporting purposes. Details of the exemption. IFRS 1 permits any one of the following amounts to be used as the deemed cost at the date of transition for any asset within the scope of the exemption. Fair value at date of transition to IFRSs, or a revaluation under previous GAAP that meets specified criteria, or a deemed cost measurement recognized under previous GAAP based on fair value at the date of an event such as privatization or an initial public offering, an event-driven value. Assets acquired in a business combination. For assets previously acquired in a business combination, when the entity has elected not to apply IFRS 3 retrospectively, the accounting will vary according to whether the item was recognized under previous GAAP. Property, plant and equipment, investment property, and intangible assets recognized, not recognized under previous GAAP. Retrospective application of IFRS 3. Exemption for oil and gas assets. This exemption is effective for annual periods beginning on or after 1st January 2010, with earlier application permitted. If this exemption is applied for a period beginning before 1st January 2010, that fact must be disclosed. The fifth optional exemption is leases. There are no explicit exemptions or exceptions in IFRS 1 from retrospective application of IAS 17 leases. A first-time adopter is therefore required to recognize all assets held under finance lease at the date of transition. If not previously recognized, this involves determining the fair value of the assets at inception of the lease, depreciated to the date of transition, and calculating the finance lease liability based on the net present value of the minimum lease payments, amortized using the rate implicit in the lease. The entity may elect to measure the asset capitalized under the finance lease at fair value at the date of transition in accordance with the optional exemption in IFRS 1. Determining whether an arrangement contains a lease. In 2009, an additional exemption was added to provide further relief to certain first-time adopters. A new exemption applies to a first-time adopter that, under its previous generally accepted accounting principles, has made an assessment as to whether an arrangement contains a lease at a date other than the date required under IFRIC 4. Following adoption of the exemption, such a first-time adopter is not required to reassess its previous determination if that previous determination under its previous GAAP would have given the same outcome under IAS 17 and IFRIC 4. This new exemption is effective for annual period beginning on or after 1st January 2010, with earlier application permitted. The sixth optional exemption is employee benefits. IFRS 1 permits an entity to elect to recognize all cumulative actuarial gains and losses up to the date of transition. If the entity chooses this exemption, it is required to apply it for all defined benefit plans. When the exemption is utilized, an entity is not precluded from applying the corridor approach for actuarial gains and losses which arises after the date of transition. Where the exemption is availed of, the corridor must be reset at the date of transition. Entities are not permitted to select any other date. Further elements of employee benefits which we discuss here. Number 1, subsidiary adopts IFRSs before parent. If the parent becomes a first-time adopter later than its subsidiary and the subsidiary has made an unreserved statement of compliance with IFRS in previous years, the subsidiary's defined benefit corridor cannot be reset to 0 for the purpose of the consolidated financial statements. Second element, defined benefit plan assumed in a business combination. If a defined benefit plan was assumed as a part of a business combination, the plan is only brought into the consolidated entity from the date of acquisition. At the date of acquisition, the plan has a new measurement basis as required by IFRS 3. An entity is not permitted to restate a plan prior to the date the plan was assumed in business combination. The third element of employee benefits, that is exemption from a disclosure requirement in IAS 19. IAS 19 includes a requirement to disclose the following amounts for the current annual period and the previous 4 annual periods. Number 1, the present value of the defined benefit obligation. The fair value of the plan assets and the surplus or deficit in the plan. Number 2, the experience adjustments arising on the plan liabilities expressed either as an amount or as a percentage of plan liabilities at the end of the reporting period. And finally, number 3, the experience adjustments arising on the plan assets expressed either as an amount or as a percentage of plan assets at the end of the reporting period. The fourth element of employee benefits, that is unrecognized past service costs. Past service cost is the change in the defined benefit obligation for employee service in prior periods arising as a result of changes in the plan arrangement in the current period. Under IAS 19, past service cost is recognized immediately to the extent it relates to former employees or to active employees already vested. Otherwise, it is amortized on a straight line basis over the average period until the amended benefits become vested. IFRS 1 grants no exemption from the requirement to identify and amortize the unvested past service cost at the date of transition. This requirement is, however, considerably less onerous than the retrospective application of the corridor for actuarial gains and losses because it does not require the recreation of data since the inception of the plan. The fifth element of employee benefits, that is actuarial valuation. Generally, an entity's first IFRS financial statements reflects measurements of defined benefit obligations at 3 different dates: the reporting date, the end of the comparative financial year, and the date of transition. First-time adopters are encouraged but not required, to involve a qualified actuary in the valuations. An entity may base all these measurements on a full actuarial valuation at one of these dates only, and roll that valuations forward or back to the other dates, provided that any such roll forward or roll back reflects material transactions and events, including changes in market prices and interest rates between those dates. The sixth element of employee benefits, that is estimates. After any adjustment to reflect changes in accounting policies for defined benefit obligations, the first-time adopter should ensure that the actuarial assumptions at the date of transition are consistent with the actuarial assumptions made for the same date under previous GAAP, unless there is objective evidence that those assumptions were in error. If certain actuarial assumptions were not made under previous GAAP, IFRS 1 requires that these assumptions should reflect the conditions at the date of transition. For example, in relation to discount rates and the fair value of the plan assets. Changes in actuarial assumptions that occur after the date of transition are not reflected in the measurement of the defined benefit liabilities at the date of transition. The seventh optional exemption is cumulative translation differences. On translation of a foreign operation in accordance with IAS 21, the effects of changes in foreign exchange rates, certain exchange differences are recognized as a separate component of equity. On subsequent disposal of the foreign operation, the cumulative translation differences related to the specific foreign operation are recognized in profit or loss for the period as a part of the gain or loss on disposal. IFRS 1 provides an optional exemption relating to the treatment of cumulative translation differences upon first-time adoption. A first-time adopter may elect not to calculate the translation differences related to foreign operations retrospectively. Instead, an entity may reset translation differences at the date of transition, determined in accordance with previous GAAP, to 0. The eighth optional exemption is investments in subsidiaries, jointly controlled entities, and associates. IFRSs do not require entities to prepare separate financial statements. The requirement for entities to produce separate financial statements and the basis on which they should be prepared is generally a matter of legislation in the jurisdiction in which the entity is established. If an entity prepares separate financial statements under IFRSs apply equally to both consolidated financial statements and the parent's financial statements. Therefore, in its separate financial statements, an entity should comply with all the IFRSs effective at the reporting date, including IFRS 1. The ninth optional exemption is assets and liabilities of subsidiaries, associates, and joint ventures. This section deals with the requirements of IFRS 1, where a parent and a subsidiary become first-time adopter at different dates. These requirements do not apply when the dates of adoption are the same. When the dates of adoptions are the same, the parent and the subsidiary may apply the exemptions in IFRS 1 independently of each other. They are not required to take the same exemptions. Subsidiary become a first-time adopter later than its parent. Secondly, the parent become a first-time adopter later than its subsidiary. The 10th optional exemption is financial instruments. Accounting for financial instruments under IFRS is complex and beyond the scope of the text. IFRS 1 sets out a number of optional exemptions to retrospective applications of these rules. Compound financial instruments, designation of previously recognized financial instruments, fair value measurement of financial assets and financial liabilities at initial recognition, other application issues relating to financial instruments, and hedge accounting. The 11th optional exemption is decommissioning liabilities included in the cost of property, plant and equipment. Under IFRIC 1, specified changes in the decommissioning, restoration, or similar liability are added to or deducted from the cost of the asset to which it relates, and the adjusted depreciable amount of the asset is then depreciated prospectively over its remaining useful life. Under the exemption, a first-time adopter may elect not to comply with requirements of IFRIC 1 for changes in such liabilities that occurred before the date of the transition to IFRS. 12th optional exemption is service concession arrangement. The exemption makes the transitional provisions included in the interpretation available to first-time adopters of IFRS. These transitional provisions generally requires that the interpretation should be applied retrospectively in accordance with IAS 8, that is, accounting policies, changes in accounting estimates and errors. However, if it is not practicable for an operator to apply the interpretation retrospectively at the start of the earliest period presented, the operator should: number 1. Recognize financial assets and intangible assets that existed at the start of the earliest period presented. Secondly, use the previous carrying amounts of those financial and intangible assets, however previously classified, as their carrying amounts as at that date. And thirdly, test financial and intangible assets recognized at that date for impairment unless this is not practicable, in which case the amount should be tested for impairment as at the start of the current period. 13th optional exemption is borrowing costs. Where an entity first adopts IFRS for a period beginning on or after 1st January 2009 or first adopts IFRS for an earlier period but chooses to apply the revised version of IAS 23, IFRS 1 permits the entity to either account for borrowing costs as though the requirements of IAS 23/2007 had always applied, or apply the transitional provision of IAS 23 where a first-time adopter chooses this option. Reference to the effective date are interpreted as 1st January 2009 or the date of transition to IFRS, whichever is later. When an entity begins capitalizing borrowing costs on first adopting IFRS in accordance with the above requirements, the entity either capitalizes borrowing costs relating to qualifying assets for which the commencement date for capitalizing is on or after 1st January 2009, or the date of transition to IFRS, whichever is later, or designates another date before 1st January 2009 or the date of transition to IFRS, whichever is later, and capitalizes borrowing costs relating to all qualifying assets for which the commencement dates for capitalizing is on or after that designated date. However, if the entity establishes a deemed cost for an asset, the entity should not capitalize borrowing costs incurred before the date of the measurement that established the deemed cost. 14th optional exemption is transfers of assets from customers. To provide first-time adopters with the same relief, an exemption was also added to IFRS 1, under which first-time adopters may also apply the transitional provisions set out in the IFRIC 18, that is, transfers of assets from customers. In part 5 of IFRS 1 video, we will discuss about the remaining element of IFRS 1, that is, other components of financial statements.